As I was doing chores, I heard a voice. I heard shouting from the venue. It was my father-in-law's voice, asking, "Why isn't Emily here?" I thought I should at least go and greet him, so I headed toward the venue. Then I heard my husband and mother-in-law laughing and saying things like, "If you're talking about that dirty woman, we've made her work in the back. What do you think a wife is for?" My name is Emily. I'm 23 and work in an office. I'm dating a guy named Steve. Our meeting was a bit unusual. I lived alone, and Steve lived in the apartment next door. One day, on my day off, I heard a loud noise coming from his apartment. I thought maybe he hit the wall, but I wasn't being loud, and my TV was on low. I felt uncomfortable, but started to think maybe someone had fallen. Worried, I rang his doorbell, but there was no answer. I rang it again and heard a faint voice. "Who is it? Are you okay?" I called out, and after a while, the door opened. Steve was standing there, looking like he was about to fall. "Are you okay?" I asked. He leaned against the door, looking dazed, and said, "I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything in days." I quickly went to my apartment, grabbed a sandwich and some tea I had saved from yesterday, and brought it to his room. "Here, have this if you want." "Are you sure?" he asked. "I'd rather help than let you starve to death," I said. He thanked me and ate the sandwich quickly, then drank the tea in one go. "Thank you," he said, sighing in relief. "I thought I was going to die. I'll definitely repay you for the sandwich later." "No need," I replied. "It's not a big deal, but why haven't you eaten in so long?" He explained. "After paying for tuition and rent, I ran out of money." "So you're a student?" "I'm a senior in college. I don't have a part-time job or anything. Actually, the pub where I worked suddenly went out of business." "What? That's terrible." "So I didn't get paid, and life became hard for me all of a sudden." "Didn't you talk to your parents?" "I didn't want to worry them." "I understand, but I think you should tell them. It's dangerous if you collapse from hunger, like you almost did." "You're right. I'll be more careful." Right after that, his stomach growled. I couldn't help but laugh. "You must be really hungry." "Well, it makes sense since you haven't eaten in days." I decided to let him try my homemade cooking. He hesitated, but I insisted, telling him it would be bad if he collapsed from malnutrition. So, I made him fried rice in my room. "This is delicious. It's been a while since I had food this good." He ate quickly and happily, like a child, which was really cute and made me feel protective of him. We introduced ourselves and exchanged contact information. I told him to reach out if he ever needed help. It seemed like he found another part-time job soon after, and he got a job at a restaurant that provided free meals. "Thanks to you, I won't starve to death." "I'm glad to hear that." Recently, when I came home from work, I'd cook a little extra and invite him over to eat together. I was always lonely eating alone, so it was nice to have someone to share meals with. While I was thinking about that, he suddenly looked serious. "What's wrong?" I asked. As I asked nervously, he swallowed and said, "Emily, would you go out with me?" "Huh? I know I'm just a poor college student, and I'm not a good match for you, but I've fallen for you." I was surprised by his directness, but I also liked him, so I said, "I like you too, Steve." He was so happy when I agreed, and we started dating. We enjoyed spending time together, talking about things like whose room to hang out in since we lived next door to each other. Our relationship went smoothly, and after he graduated, he found a job. We decided to move into a bigger place when he started working. Although we had already been living together, we thought it would be better to share a larger room to lower the rent for both of us. We continued dating for a while and got married when I was 26, and he was 25. Even though we kept living in the same room, not much changed after our marriage. However, one thing did change right away: Steve's mother, who became my mother-in-law. Before, we had never been involved with her much, but after we got married, we had to see her more often. Even though she had never visited our home when we were living together, she started coming over a lot after we got married. "Emily, do you even clean the room properly?" she asked. "Look at all this dust. I can't reach that high, and I don't have time to clean up there after work." "What? You're talking back to your mother-in-law? You're a cheeky wife." "I just said I couldn't do what I couldn't do." "You're just full of excuses. I can't believe Steve married someone like you." My mother-in-law took every chance to criticize me. Since I left for work earlier and returned earlier than my husband, she would harass me non-stop until he came home. I tried to do the housework, hoping my husband would get home soon. "What are you making?" she asked. "Huh? I'm grilling fish." "Steve won't be satisfied with that. Make a more elaborate meat dish." "What are you doing, mother-in-law?" My mother-in-law threw the grilled fish I had made into the trash. I can't believe I left the daily cooking to you. From now on, I'll do it. If she cooked, that meant she'd come over every day. I didn't want that at all. There's no need, mother-in-law. I'll cook properly. No, I don't trust you. I'll come and cook every day. Just then, Steve came home. She immediately talked to him about it. Oh, you're going to help with housework, Mom? That's great. Please do, huh? Steve decided without even asking for my opinion. I'm looking forward to cooking with you, Emily, my mother-in-law said, smiling proudly. From then on, it was awful. She got a key from Steve and started coming into our house, waiting for me to get home from work. You're late. Don't just leave everything to me. I'm cooking. Start cleaning now. She made me do housework even when I was exhausted from work. Even if the house wasn't that dirty, she constantly watched me. If I took a break, she would scold me nonstop. I had no choice but to keep cleaning, which made me even more tired. She really did come every day to cook, and she even ate dinner with us. She would badmouth me in front of Steve, calling me useless. Don't cause trouble for Mom, Steve would say, blaming me instead of scolding his mother. My mother-in-law could come over every day because her husband was working abroad, and she lived alone, so she visited us often. She also started pressuring me about having a child. There's nothing better than having a child. Hurry up and have one or two. I tried to explain that it's not something we can just do right away, we have to wait. Younger people these days always have excuses, she said. I had Steve right after I got married. Huh? It's because you're working, she replied. What? I was a housewife, so I could have children right away. Her logic didn't make sense. If you properly support your husband's life, you'll have more time for children. You're too tired from work. What a thing to say. That's so cruel. I don't think it has anything to do with it. Shut up. If you don't get pregnant soon, we'll find another wife. Another wife? Of course, there's no value in a woman who can't have children. I was shocked by how she was speaking. It felt like such a discriminatory thing to say. You really are the type to always argue back. I'll tell Steve, she said. I thought she was the one who always argued back. When Steve came home, his mother immediately told him what happened. Emily, did you talk back to my mom? What are you thinking? Steve was instantly angry after hearing his mother's version of the story. It's probably your fault we can't have children, he said. What? Are you saying that too? There's no way it's my fault. What nonsense are you talking about? I was getting fed up with my husband, who always sided with his mother. I even started to think maybe it would be better to get a divorce. That's when my husband's grandmother, who had been in the hospital, passed away. A funeral was held, and even though I was thinking about divorce, I had to attend, but my husband and his mother told me not to come to the main area and to prepare things in the back. I had no choice but to make tea and do chores in the back. I decided that once the funeral was over, I would leave my husband. While I was doing the chores, I heard yelling from the main room. Why isn't Emily here? It was my father-in-law's voice. It seemed he had returned from his overseas business trip. Well, since it was his mother's funeral, it made sense that he'd be here. I thought I should at least go and greet him, so I headed to the main venue. Then I heard my husband and mother-in-law talking and smirking. It's obvious she's not family. We're making that dirty woman work in the back. They even said this in front of my father-in-law. I was shocked at how little things had changed. The next moment, my father-in-law's angry voice rang out. Are you kidding me? What do you think a wife is for? My husband and mother-in-law were stunned by his shouting. What are you angry about? They asked. Yeah, you really surprised us, my mother-in-law added. I'm disgusted that you two think like this, my father-in-law said. I'll call Emily. When I heard that, I went to where they were. Father-in-law, long time no see, I said. He looked surprised. Emily, did you hear that? Yes, I replied. As I walked in, my husband and mother-in-law gave me disgusted looks. Emily, could it be that you've been suffering from bullying from my son and wife? My father-in-law asked. I answered, yes. She came to the house almost every day to complain about me, and Steve joined in to blame me. My father-in-law glared at his wife and son. You guys are the worst. Have some shame. My husband tried to argue back. What's wrong with us? What did we do that's so bad? I thought it was really the worst that they didn't even realize their mistakes. My mother, in other words, her grandmother, was always troubled by being bullied by her mother-in-law. That's why I wanted to be kind to my son's wife when I became a father-in-law. I never bullied her. You don't have any bad memories from my mother, do you? My father-in-law asked. Well, that's true, but even so, you're bullying Emily and making her suffer. What kind of nerve do you have? He added. Because this woman won't give us a grandchild. I think having a child is a blessing. Just because you had children early doesn't mean you should force that on your daughter-in-law. You guys are really hopeless, my father-in-law said, clearly upset. Then, he turned to me. Emily, what do you think? Do you want to continue your marriage with my son? My husband, looking shocked, said, Hey, Dad, what are you saying? I ignored my husband and looked at my father-in-law. I want to divorce him, I said. Hey, Emily, are you serious? My husband was flustered. Your mother told me that if I can't have a child, I have to find another wife, I said. Wait a minute, Emily, what are you saying? My husband was panicking. I don't want to be with a mother-in-law who says such things, and I'm fed up with a husband who joins in the blame without defending me. I'll divorce my husband, no matter what, I declared. When I said that, my father-in-law replied, I think that's a good idea. If you're going to divorce, there's no need to help with this funeral anymore. Emily, thank you for everything up to now. You can go home and pack your things. Yes, thank you. I'm glad I could talk to you, father-in-law, I said, then left the venue. My husband and mother-in-law looked pale. Since everyone overheard our conversation, news of my husband and mother-in-law's bullying quickly spread, and they were looked down upon by all the relatives. With my father-in-law's help, I officially divorced my husband. It seems my father-in-law was so appalled by what happened that he also divorced my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was left abandoned by my father-in-law and had nowhere to go, so she went to my ex-husband's place. But since I had been paying for most of the living expenses, they soon started running out of money. My ex-husband had saved nothing, so the two of them were struggling to make ends meet. Well, it's none of my business, so I don't really care. As for me, I now live alone in a single-person apartment and enjoy my life. I recently started keeping a cat, so I don't think I'll be dating for a while.